Okay, so let's dive into something we all do pretty much every day, but probably don't think twice about: leaving online reviews. It turns out that quick star rating you gave for a coffee maker or that hotel review you typed out, it's all part of a huge and honestly a really complex field of science.
I mean, of course you have, right? We all have. That quick scroll through the user comments before you hit buy now, it's almost a reflex at this point. It's how we make sense of the just endless choices online. But what is actually going on when we read and write these digital recommendations?
So, before the internet, all we had was good old-fashioned word of mouth. You know, you have to go all the way back to 1967 for the classic definition by a researcher named Arndt. He called it this: personal, non-commercial chat between people. So think about your friend telling you about a great new restaurant they tried. The whole reason you trust them is because you know them. They're not getting paid to say it, it's just their real opinion.
But then, the internet happened. And it took that simple one-to-one conversation and it turned it into something completely new. Something we now call electronic word of mouth, or eWOM for short.
This is really where the game completely changed. Researchers started seeing websites, forums, and review platforms as these giant virtual coffee shops. It's a great analogy, right? All of a sudden, you're not just talking to your one friend, you can talk to thousands of other people who are just as obsessed with finding the best running shoes or the quietest hotel room as you are.
And the difference between the two is just staggering when you lay it out. Traditional word of mouth, it was personal, it was slow. It could only travel as fast as people could talk, and it was limited to your immediate circle. But electronic word of mouth, well, it's often totally anonymous. It is instantaneous, and the scale it's just massive. Your opinion can literally reach a global audience with a single click.
You know, this explosion of online opinions didn't just change how we shop for stuff, it also created this whole new, fascinating field of study for scientists. This isn't just random chatter online. This is big, big data.
So just how big are we talking? Well, look at this number, 1,896. What is that? Well, that's the number of academic papers that researchers analyzed for the single source study we're looking at today. That's not the total number of papers in the world. That's just the sample for one analysis about all the other analyses. It's huge. And you can see how fast this field grew. In the early 2000s, it was just a little trickle of research. Then, in the late 2000s, it started picking up steam. But in the last decade, an absolute explosion. Research went from a couple dozen papers to well over 1,600. It just grew exponentially as everyone, from sociologists to marketers, tried to get a handle on this powerful new force.
Okay, so how on earth do you even begin to make sense of a field that massive? Well, the researchers behind this paper had a pretty clear process. First, they cast a super wide net, finding over 12,000 articles. Then they had to narrow it down, filtering for the most relevant, highest quality papers to get to that core group of 1896. And then, and this is the cool part, they used these powerful analytical tools to find all the hidden connections and themes, basically creating a map of the entire science.
So what did this giant map actually show? Well, it turns out that most of the research clusters into three main areas. First, you've got the real foundational stuff, just trying to define what eWOM is and figuring out the psychology of why we even bother to write reviews. Second, there's the big money question. How do all these reviews actually impact sales? And third, you see these deep dives into specific industries like tourism and hospitality, where a single bad review can literally make or break a small business. So that's the overall map of the research. But where's the action happening right now? You know, what's on the cutting edge? The study found it really boils down to two major, powerful trends that are driving everything forward.
The first one is something called a recommender system. Now, you already know what this is. Think of it as the engine running behind the scenes on Amazon or Netflix. It's that customers who bought this also bought feature. These systems are constantly learning from our past ratings and reviews to try and predict what we'll like next, whether it's a movie, a book, or a vacation spot.
They're basically trying to help us find the needle in the haystack. And the second huge trend is data mining. This is where it gets really interesting, because this goes way beyond just star ratings. This is about analyzing the actual words we write in our reviews. Using tools like sentiment analysis, researchers can pull out the emotion and the specific meaning hidden in our sentences. They can figure out everything from what features customers secretly want to mapping out the entire competitive landscape of a market. So, what's really crucial to understand is that these two things, building systems that recommend stuff to us, and mining our language for deeper meaning, these are what the source paper calls the motor themes. They are the twin engines that are powering pretty much all of the most important and innovative research that's happening in this space right now.
Which, of course, brings us to the future. If this is where we are today, where is all this headed? What does the future of your online opinion even look like?
Well, the research points to some pretty mind-bending places. We're talking about AI and machine learning that can pull insights automatically. Think about systems that can understand reviews in any language all at once, or algorithms that can predict the next big market trend just by noticing an unusual rare word popping up in reviews. And I love this one, using fuzzy logic, because, let's be honest, human feelings are rarely just a simple good or bad. The future is all about finding much deeper, much more nuanced meaning in the opinions we share.
So, okay, we've gone from a simple chat with a friend all the way to AI and fuzzy logic. Why does any of this matter? What's the big takeaway from mapping out the science of our opinions?
The researchers put it perfectly. They called this a paradigm shift. And that's not a small word. That means this isn't just a little change. It's a complete revolution in how we as consumers communicate with companies. For the very first time in history, the most powerful marketing channel isn't controlled by advertisers anymore. It's controlled by us.
And that leaves us with one last, really big question to chew on. We've seen how all this data helps companies understand what we want and how to sell it to us. But as our every like, our every rating, and our every single review gets collected, crunched, and analyzed, it really forces us to ask, when our opinion becomes data, who does it ultimately serve?